Hello everyone, this is Billy here. So we are finally getting to our October monthly market insights report. It is a little delayed here. We've had some crazy times, so it's the end of December right now in 2021. Yeah, I know. It's like, hello, what happened? Why did it take you so long? So it's been a crazy couple weeks. After Thanksgiving, had a couple trips, went to Florida for a week and then New York, and then I got sick for a week, and so long story short, we're finally here, but excited to bring this update with you. So, just to jump right into it. So, again, just as a quick overview here, there's a bunch of text, and again, kind of the format of this is we're going to go over, there's going to be a bunch of charts, numbers, and data, and we're going to walk you through this, kind of interpret some of it for you. What does it mean? How does this reflect what we're seeing in the market? So, this is for, again, October of 2021. When we compare this to October of the previous year, there's for single-family homes, there's been a certain and defined dip in the amount of homes that have been for sale and that have sold in the month of October of this year. It's been a 27.6% drop in sales compared to October for last year. So another question you might have is like, all right, cool. Well, how do prices this year compare to prices in October from the previous year? So those were pretty much flat. It's really just it's a 0.1% increase in sales price from $699 to $700. So essentially, the price was flat, which is very surprising, especially knowing that earlier in the year, especially over the summer months, we've seen huge increases year over year in price, like 10%, 12%, 15%, even in some of the high teens. So this is showing that as we get into the fall months, things are definitely starting to kind of level out a bit more from that frenzied pace over the summer. For condos, the amount that were sold in October of this year were pretty much in line with what we saw from last year. So it's 971 in October of 2020 compared to 949 this year. And so what was interesting, so for condos, we actually saw there was a little bit more interest in condos. Condos are starting to get a little bit more competitive in the fall compared to the amount of interest in single family homes. So that shows that we have a 6% increase in the sales price for condos for the month of October of this year compared to the previous year. And for multifamily homes, the amount of sales in the greater Boston area were, again, similar to single family homes, pretty much flat, a 1.8% increase in the amount of multifamily homes that were sold. And so now what we're going to do, one of the things that we're adding, we're going to be trying to add going forward in these presentations is also not only a look into the greater Boston area and some of the towns that has to do with, but also just some general top news in the market. Important things for this month. So the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate was kind of fluctuated a little up and down the month of October. It kind of, the average was around 3.14%. That's an historically incredible mortgage rate. It is up a little bit from kind of some of the high twos that we saw earlier in the spring and in some of the earlier summer months. And the thing that definitely want to draw your attention to here is the sorry about that. The inflation index. So this is the amount of inflation that's happened, and this is 6.2% year over year comparing October of this year to October of 2020. So CPI, the Consumer Price Index, this is essentially the index that measures the amount of inflation that's happening. And so how this index works, and maybe we'll break it up into a separate video, but really it looks at a ton of different factors. So the cost for cars, housing, rental cars, food, housing, all sorts of factors, and it basically looks at how those prices have increased or decreased in any certain time period year over year. And so this is a whopping 6.2%. So this is huge. I mean, I believe this is the highest rate of inflation since 1980 when Ronald Reagan was president. And this is just absolutely going to be pummeling you if you have cash that you're trying to save up for a house. This is just eating away at your buying power. And now just to kind of jump into some of the data here. So what we're looking at is the amount of units sold. So we're looking at single family homes and condos as well. So this is going to be comparing year over year for the same month, but then also month over month, how we're comparing October to the previous month of September of this year. And then you can also see kind of the run rate of the year to date. So from January of 2020 through this point, October, and then also January of 2021 to October of 2021. It kind of compares those stats. So the big things that jump out here, we can see that the amount of units sold has dropped off a cliff for single family homes, so minus almost 28%. For condos, it was essentially flat. And we can see that, okay, well, how does that compare to September? So it's also a drop for September. So I would expect, so this isn't really super surprising to me, knowing that the amount of homes and condos that I've sold in October compared to September has dropped. That's kind of part of the expectation for the seasonal cycles of real estate in the greater Boston area. So we can see that, and this is where we like to show this kind of chart that's 12 months. So you can see, kind of zoom out and see that what that picture looks like. Again, we can see that, and this is a trend that we see pretty much every year, is that in the fall and the winter months, things are kind of tapering down, and then as we get into the warmer months, the amount of inventory is building back up. The amount of homes that are being sold is peaking in the summer months, and then June and July, things start to kind of cool off again. So this column doesn't really shock me. That's almost within expectation. What is surprising, though, is seeing the amount year over year, this difference. And so why would people be less likely to be selling their homes right now? I think maybe part of it is, if you're thinking of selling your home, you're probably at this point waiting until the spring or early summer for next year if you can hold out, especially knowing how many buyers are on the market right now looking to buy your home. And this is now here, we're just looking at the median selling price again. So this is kind of painting with the broad strokes here. So this is going to vary quite a bit per town. This is just looking at all of the towns that are composing the greater Boston area. So this is kind of, what does that look like? So it's in general kind of the 95, the towns that are kind of in the 95 circle and in closer to the city. And we can definitely get a list of what those towns are and provide those as well for one of the upcoming videos. So the good news for buyers is, it looks like things are starting to calm down a bit. So for single family homes, year over year, again, the price for single family homes is pretty much flat. That's very surprising, especially knowing, again, how much the price has been increasing year over year in some of the warmer months. So this shows that things are dropping quite a bit. And this is where you can see the blue lines here are single family. This is the median price. And we can see that it peaked in June. That's also the peak of the year for units sold. So we can see that as less things are available, there's kind of less interest from buyers, which is why we're starting to see, and less inventory as well. So this is why we're starting to see that kind of yearly trend where it's starting to dip down in the cooler months. And for condos, year over year, we see a price increase of about 6%. Again, we touched on this in the overview. I think that's pretty modest and almost within expectations for how the year has been. And compared to September, if you're buying a house now in October, you're definitely getting a deal on them. So I will say, if you're a buyer, in late fall and the winter months is actually a great time to be looking to buy a home. It's when homes can be bought for the cheapest price per square foot out of the entire year. The downside is you're going to have to work harder and look a little harder. There's less inventory available, but if you can find something that you're interested in that you can get an offer accepted on, it's usually the best time of year in terms of bang for your buck. And how does this look for the amount of active listings here? So what we're looking at here is how many things are on the market right now compared to both the previous year and the previous month. So we can see that for year over year, the amount of active inventory is really low compared to what we saw last year. So dropping off 26% for single family homes, 32% for condos. And what does this result in? So this is actually showing what we're seeing when I'm working with people that are looking to buy right now is this is actually putting pressure on condos and homes. So we're still seeing competitive scenarios where there's multiple offers that are going to, offers need to be made for over asking price for the most part. So it's definitely a seller's market. And in terms of months of supply, 1.4% or 1.4 months of supply. That's flat. It's the same as it was last year. For single family homes and for condos, this has dropped to 2.5 months compared to 3.6 the year previous. So again, I think really what we're seeing here is because there's less inventory available than the previous year, which we see here in active listings, what's happening is buyers are scooping up the homes that are available at a quicker pace, which is why the month supply of inventory is going down. And again, so the month supply of inventory is basically saying for homes that are on the market, for the amount of buyers that are looking to buy homes, how many months supply would there be? And this is basically showing essentially this is a way to measure the amount of interest for buyers and sellers. So usually the heuristic that we go by is, and I think we mentioned this in the previous video, if it's below 6 months for months of supply, then that's generally considered a seller's market. And if it's above 6 months supply of inventory, then that's considered a buyer's market. So in the greater Boston area, it has been below 6 months supply of inventory for a long time, like probably a decade or so, if not longer. So it's been a seller's market for a while. And then just comparing this quickly to September, the previous month of this year, again, we're seeing that the amount of inventory has dropped. That's generally what we expect to see for the fall months. Same with condos here. And for the month supply of inventory, again, we see that that's flat. That's not surprising because, it's really at the interest in single family homes is still incredibly high, and we're seeing that. How does that compare to September? So the amount of buyers that are scooping up homes has, again, there's just less interest generally in the fall. So we can see that it's currently 2.5 months supply of inventory in October, and in the previous month it was 2.2. So this is showing that there's less buyers that are really looking to buy homes compared to the previous month. And really, this is just a little bit more of a visual of the same chart previously. So where we're seeing here, again, we don't even really show and reflect the line of 6 months, but that's generally the break-even point. And again, we're below that. But what we are seeing, which is nice and, for buyers, is, again, this line here is June. This is kind of where it bottomed out. And it looks like it's starting to get to be a little bit more balanced compared to the summer, which is good. It's generally a healthy market when it's a little bit more balanced. And in terms of new listings, again, this isn't really super surprising. So we can see here on the chart, this is October of this year compared to October of the 2020. So it is definitely down quite a bit year over year. So that is, we've known that this has been an inventory shortage pretty much the entire year of 2021. It's definitely continuing to look that way. It's not like things are changing much for the month of October. It's not surprising to see a drop from the month of September, but I think the amount that this has dropped is surprising. So this just, again, it's an observation for the markets. What this is showing is that if we had so if we're comparing this to, September, for example, the comparison of August to September, we saw that there was a huge flood of new inventory in September, and that was great because really that's helping to have, instead of going to a scenario where there's 30 offers on a home, where we were seeing really more of like 5-ish offers on a home. And so now when the inventory level drops like this is showing that things are starting to get a little bit more competitive just because there's less inventory for people to submit offers on. And this is just a quick snapshot of the multifamily market, in particular for two-family homes. We're not going to go super in depth like we have for, some of the single-family homes and condos. But this is really kind of a high-level snapshot of a lot of the same information. So just to touch on some of the highlights quickly, we can see that year over year, for the month of October, the median selling price has increased a little bit. So that's gone up about 12.7%. The amount of units sold is also increasing this October compared to the year previous. And what does that look like compared to September? So October compared to September, the sales price has been pretty much flat, and the amount of units sold in October compared to September is up a little bit, 5%. That's modest. And the amount of inventory and sales with multifamily homes compared to condos or single families, the amount of deals done is much lower. And again, this is kind of consistent across the entire market that we're looking at. So for active listings, month supply inventory, new listings, across the board, we're seeing that those numbers are dropping quite a bit. So compared to both October year over year and also compared to the month of September. So it's no different with multifamily homes. If you're looking to buy one, there's definitely going to be less to choose from. So you've really got to make sure that you're working with an agent that's scouring the market for you and making sure that you're not missing out on a thing. Other notable things, the sold to original price ratio, 99.7%. So this is showing that, generally things are selling for almost what the list price is going for. So it's not like things are going drastically for above list price or lower than list price. So this is showing that things are a bit more competitive October of this year compared to the previous year because the sold to original price ratio is up 1%. But really, this is just saying that generally people, some people are paying over asking price, a couple of people are paying under asking price. That's why it's about this. It's about 100%. And again, this number, if it was 100%, means that if the house was selling for $500,000, or that was the asking price, that would also be the purchase price. That would be, it's 100% of that price has been getting paid. And price per square foot. So we're seeing that October of this year compared to the previous year, that's up about 6.8%. So again, this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier, but it's nice to see it with the data as well. When you get into the cooler months, so when we're comparing that to October, this is showing that it's a slight decrease compared to the price per square foot for homes in September. I expect that this number would actually continue to go down when we look at the November data as well. And for single family homes, so we touched on a lot of this stuff already. So we're just going to jump to the things that are new that we haven't covered here. So, or haven't covered in some of the earlier material, really, that we're going to focus on the sold to original price ratio. So that's showing in October, that's 98.4%. That's surprising to me. That's saying that, in general, people are getting some single family homes for less than the listing price. And that could be for a couple reasons. That could be people are still pricing these homes for, as if it was the hotter or the summer months where there was more buyer interest, and what they aren't accounting for is the change in pricing that happens seasonally. So that's probably if you're just working with an agent that's not used to, seeing the bigger picture year over year and kind of what that bigger picture looks like and how it can influence prices. If I was working with someone that was thinking about selling their home, I would definitely recommend to them that if we could, to try and wait until the summer months, like, listing this in the May, June, July timeframe versus the fall. However, that's not always an option. And again, we see that here as well. So the median selling price is down 8.5% compared to October of the previous year. That's definitely pretty surprising. And if we're looking at this compared to September of the previous year, so again, the price of $700 compared to $725. Again, so as we get into the cooler months, things are going to kind of decrease and cool off a little bit. We're seeing that here in the pricing and the amount of units sold, especially in the sold to original price ratio. So we can see that in September, people were more likely to be paying over asking price because this number is over 100%. And comparing that to October, you have a likelihood of actually getting something for under the listing, under the original price. And just looking at this again for condos, so this is where we're gonna wrap up with condos here. So looking at the median selling price, we are seeing that it's been bumping up a little bit. Looking at the sold to original price ratio, again, so this is generally you're going to be able to get a condo for under what its listing price is. This is pretty close to what it was for the month of September. It's down a little bit from 98.7 to 98%. And the price per square foot, so up 15% year over year compared to the month of October of last year, and pretty much flat for the September month of this year as well. So a ton of super interesting insights here. If you have any questions or you want me to dig deeper in any of this, we're totally glad to do that. Again, we just want to give you kind of a snapshot to keep you updated with what does the market look like. And this is definitely valuable information if you're a buyer thinking about potentially buying a single family home or a condo, but also if you're a seller, right? So if you're a seller, you have to be thinking about working with someone that knows how to kind of read the tea leaves and the data and figure out, okay, what month should I be thinking about selling my home in? When's the best time to start getting that process ready? And if I sell it in a different month, what does that look like for me, right? So we're able to kind of do the analysis, take out some of these takeaways, and it's definitely really powerful in what we use to work with some of the people, or all of the people and clients that we're working with. So again, sorry this is a little bit of a tardy monthly update, but excited to get this out to you. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Our contact information is right here, and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, and talk to you soon.